Oh my goodness. Seriously, I have to just do it. It's like I can tell myself I don't have to think about things that don't matter.
I was designed to do those things. How the hell does this guy know this about me?
It's impossible to not see.
When Dan read for my sister, she was like, he's psychic. She's like, how does he know that?
Yes.
She's like, it's human design, guys. Like, it's just a testimony of how legit it is.
Seriously, Danny was like FBI or CIA. He's like, how the hell does this guy know this about me?
Having my chart read, there were just thing after thing after thing that I was just like, wow, that's me.
This man is reading me and I've never met him before.
I was in the midst of one of the biggest emotional waves I've ever been in my life, and he saved my life.
It seems like everybody has the same reaction. It's that aha moment, and they want to find out more.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Human Design Advantage podcast. My name is Jen, and decoding the matrix for us is Danny Guru.
How you doing, everyone? Hi, Jen. How's it going?
It is going great today. How are you today, Dan?
I say the same. I just got my dose of sunshine before all the cloud seeding covered up the sky again.
Good. Well,
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear you're getting sunshine.
Oh, yeah. I'm tan. It's good. You can probably see it in my face.
Yes, but I mean, like, since the recent, what y'all were going through up there this week.
Oh, yeah. Yep. The smoke and the haze made it down here to me, but not nearly as bad as it was in New York City, for instance. Yep.
Good to hear. Yeah, so we've got an interesting topic for today.
Yeah, we do, and we touched on it once before already, and I went through it, and it'll be impossible to keynote all 16 variables. But I wanted to show people why this variable grid was so important and why the arrows, they tell us a great deal. And so I think I sent you 3 slides, and one of them shows our...
I got 2.
Well, you got the 2 I texted you, and one I just texted you like 10 minutes ago. Said sorry for the late entry.
I got 1 that you didn't send 2. You sent 1. You sent the variable orientation, and then I got the chart today.
Okay. Well, actually, the chart today is that'll be fine.
All right.
Yep.
I only got 2 slides.
Oh, look at your text. There should be a 3rd one, but that's okay because I know.
I just checked. There's only 2 slides. Is what
No kidding. Okay, good enough. What episode are we on? 53?
3.
No kidding. I remembered. Well, everyone, make sure you like and subscribe and share this out to other people. We're teaching human design here, and we've been teaching it for over a year. We've covered so many bases. Go back and look at whatever you want, and for God's sakes, definitely schedule your reading and your analysis, and we'll go through this with you together. So variables, Jen, the arrows, right? Did I do well, by the way? I did all the stuff you normally do.
Yeah. Yes. No, you did fantastic.
Yay. So variables, we're always looking at these arrows on our body graph. No one, it's still a mystery to many people. These variables indicate our way, and they indicate our cognition. Literally, how we're going to view things, how we're going to be as it relates to our mental process. And these variables are everything to do with cognition and consciousness. And importantly, they're independent of the body graph. It doesn't matter the type. It doesn't matter the definition. It doesn't matter the authority, none of it. Variables, these 4 arrows, are a totally separate program running with the life that is the design itself, but they are separate.
The more that I learn about my variables, that, what you can pull out of it, the environment, what's my motivator, how I eat, it is spot on.
Yep, absolutely. And then so on the surface of variable, you'll see, if you could pull up the first slide, it's blue, I believe.
Yeah, let me show you what I got.
There's a huge delay on my camera.
Oh, I don't know why. I got this one.
Yep.
And then this one.
Perfect. That's a crappy lines I drew on here with just a line maker on a picture. But we're going to start here for a second. So the other picture was just this without the lines on it. That's all.
Okay. Yeah. No, I didn't get that one. I just got the.
All good. So I'd like you to notice there are 16 possible variables, and it's really just because there's 4 arrows and they can point left or right. So 4 times 4. So there's 16 variables, and on the top left is where we came from. The old 7-centered way slipped in at the top left. Like picture that there is a whole other grid of something on the top left moving upward, and it all siphoned into these all right variables, where all left. I mean, where all the bless you, where all the arrows are pointing to the left. That's where we came from. Our 7-centered form was all left, strategic, active. Its consciousness level could never get above strategically trying to figure out how we can, conquer the tribe next door, get more, be more powerful.
So the variables didn't come in until after the mutation?
Not this grid. Yeah, I don't know what the variables were beforehand. They were, well, I know one thing, they were all left.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. So when they were, before the mutation took place to be a 9-centered being, there were no really, it was just all left.
Yep, correct.
Everybody was all
left. It was, we were a left-facing world all together. Yep. So, well, what did you say?
I said, oh, geez.
Oh, geez is right. Now, in our 9-centered form, all left arrows don't mean what it meant in our 7-centered form. But what you're noticing here is that, so all left, and if you go all the way down to the bottom right, you'll notice they're all right. And we know that's the incoming rave. The rave will be, again, all right. We're a transitional form as it relates to, we're a transitional form. What's happening is you're noticing that there's a movement from all left diagonally down to all right. Rightness is this incredible open receptivity to everything, not focused on anything, not trying, you're always being the observer. Everything in your mental system is passively just pouring in, and your perception of things is just receptive. You're receptively gathering stuff, and Jen, you and I do it all the time. We always say now, from our rightness, we pull anything, right? Yeah, that's what rightness is here to do. It's here to be drawn from, and the leftness is here to do much of the drawing. So as a transitional form, this human Homo sapien intransitus is basically how the voice described it to Ra. They didn't use those words, but that's the translation. We're a transitional life form, basically going from the all 7-centered way of hundreds of thousands of years of that, 100 plus, to an all right receptive rave with an offshoot. See how it's sloppy, but see how there's a line that's now pointing up to the right from the center. So picture all of these variables. They're more and more, as you move down to the right, each one on either side is getting more and more rightness in it. So it starts out all left, and then the 2 variables in that, this variable grid breaks up into 4 quadrants: the top left, top right, lower right, quadrants, groups of 4.
Yeah, so this would be the cross.
Into like a little group of 4. So the first 4 on the top left, notice it's where there's the most rightness in them. It's and the personality is all right, strategic. That top right arrow of each of these boxes in the first grid, they're all left. They're all facing to the left. And then when you move over to the right-hand grid and moving down, that personality arrow is now all right. So the movement is towards rightness, towards open receptiveness, where we're always drawing from each other, not strategic, not trying to conquer things, not trying to create hierarchy, not trying to control stuff, because that's what the strategic does. The strategic 7-centered being. So this line pointing up to the right, this is the human form. It will continue on, and we don't know for how long. It will continue on within this grid within this quadrant of the top right quadrant, where these 4 boxes have all of the personality top right black arrows pointing to the right. And so what I'm trying to demonstrate here is there's a quadrant where we came from, and it's moving diagonally to the right to all rightness, and there's an offshoot of humanity that is moving to the top right, so that, you know, these will be the predominant variables in humanity after a few hundred more years. You know, 500 or 600 years from now, the children being born will start to really lopside into this. These will be the variables.
Right's more the emotional. That makes sense after the mutation. That's why the solar plexus came online.
Yep. The solar plex came online with that mutation. Rightness becomes this open receptivity. So our solar plex center is supposed to be open, receptive to this emotional wave that we feel. And as we move in this direction over the next 100 years, that emotional solar plex is going to lose its motor power, its power to energize conflict. And it'll just turn more into an awareness center that is acting as this motor that's constant. We've all seen what happens when an emotional wave goes awry. There's a lot of energy there, and it's a heavy duty impact. That's going to start to slow down with our open receptivity to all of this. So this is our evolution. What?
You know what just came in on that?
What?
That is the most beautiful thing that I've ever heard, because the way that the matrix keeps running is they keep prying on our emotional centers.
Mm-hmm.
They pull us by emotions because they know that if you are not aware of emotions, what emotions truly are, or human design, if you have an emotional center to wait for clarity, it might be a wave. They know that we have emotional responses, and yes, so I've had emotional responses that did not, you know, I could have handled a lot better.
Right.
You know, afterwards, now that I know what my emotions are, it's a very powerful energy.
That motor function is going to wind down.
Yes.
Because consciousness is being interrupted by that motor function. If we were all truly awake and aware, that motor function wouldn't be so bad at all. But ultimately, it's going to want the motor function of this solar plex center is going to wind down. And
I don't think that it's bad. I just think that people are not aware of emotions in general.
I agree. And that's why if we were all truly aware of it, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. And the motorized function could stay. And because that motorized function's juicy too. Let's motorize ourselves into this great new experience. That's juicy, fun stuff. Driven by a motor inside our body that makes us move. I mean, it doesn't suck when it's fun. It just sucks when it sucks. And not knowing the difference means we're always moving into suckiness easily. And you're right. They've been asking us during this whole pandemic process to make emotionally rapid decisions. Remember when we did the design of our country, the founding of our country?
Uh-huh.
And they came up with our Constitution, and it was an open, receptive, individually creative act of defiance as a new nine-centered form was being ushered in to declare that we are sovereign from you. We, the people, are now a thing, not royalty, kings, queens, and sovereigns that were simply a family was sovereign and everyone else was a serf. They were coming up with these documents to protect us right around the time of this shift, which lets me know quite clearly that we're heavily affected as the shift approaches, just like now. We're coming into the shift in 27, right? And then we're heavily affected by this. We're watching the turmoil of it. Mm-hmm. So when they did that back then, they intuitively built in a solar plex to our process. We went from two awarenesses that were chugging along, the mind, that awareness over all of time, you know, mental awareness, the process of cognition and conceptualizing, and then our spleen, the process of survival awareness in the now, super fast. And we've had that all along. An iguana has splenic awareness, you know, everything does that moves or crawls or walks or flies or swims. And,
I was going to say swims.
Or swims. They all have an intuitive splenic awareness that says, you know, whatever it says, dump, you know, jump, duck, run, freeze, whatever it says, that's the spleen. When the emotional solar plex came online, our constitutional makers, most likely unbeknownst to them, unless there were some mystics during that time that maybe were informing our generals and our people doing this.
They all were mystics. They were all Masons, 33 degrees. To get to that level, you have to be a mystic. They understand universal law.
I'm talking about a reliable mystic who's tapped in outside of
that is, Dan. That's what I'm saying. That's to get to that level. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyone at that level, basically, they consulted with either mediums, astrology.
That's what I'm referring to.
Oracles. Yes, that's what
they consulted with is what I'm really referring to. The people that would have been consulted with, even if it was them, and they maybe were some of the people. But I'm talking about the people that are really tapped in, the oracles, the translators, the channelers. I don't know if were they our founding fathers too.
Yes.
Oh, I did not know that then.
Yes. Oh, yes. I mean,
That never occurred to me.
even after they wrote the Constitution, if you just look at how everything was built, it all ties into the Fibonacci sequence. It's very esoteric, and esoteric is, that is tapping into the higher realms. When you get to that level, you don't need to consult in another mystic. You are the mystic. Got you.
Well, they did a good job. And what you're saying stands to reason entirely, because they did a good job. They built into government something that hadn't been built into any other government. They built in a Supreme Court judiciary that would be independent and have power over all the other functions, depending upon its interpretation of the Constitution.
They obviously knew something was coming.
They knew something was coming, and they knew that decision-making needed to be slowed down. Now, they may not have had the words for that. Well, we understand that decision-making needs to be slowed down. They may not have had the direct language for it, but intuitively, that's what they did. And maybe they did have that language, by the way. Maybe they were saying it that way. Either way, the Supreme Court process and the process of our courts in general, the ones that are working, that is, slows things down and doesn't allow for an emotional decision to be made outside of clarity.
Mm-hmm.
In its perfect form, our courts are supposed to bring clarity. In their current hijacked form, all the lower courts bring pain and suffering, and the corporation and bonds and charges and charges against our Social Security trust account, all of that stuff, and they bring jail, which is business and it's money making. But before that, it worked. You look at old, storytelling from before the Civil War and even up through part of the Civil War. Our courts were common law, period. And you had to harm someone. And if you didn't harm someone or breach a contract or trespass on them, then there was no action to be taken. But the court slowed all of this down, and they made it go slow. And here we are, the beneficiary of that slowness. And we hate it mostly because we still want to go fast. And I don't blame us in certain ways for wanting to go fast, but they built in an open, receptive, emotional, stabilizing process that meets up with our evolution. It meets up perfectly with how we're supposed to evolve. So the rave that comes in as an all right being post 2027, there will be hardly any at first, and then more, and then more, and then more, and then pretty soon we'll be sharing the planet with a new species. I mean, that's
and everybody will be right.
No, humanity has this offshoot. You see how this arrow that points up to the right?
Mm-hmm.
That's humanity's trajectory. As the right is coming. Yep. So there's a fork in the road. If you look as if you're going down the road from the top left, you take a hard left turn for humanity and you keep going straight on for the rave, there's a fork in the road. And humanity takes the left-hand turn and the rave takes the right-hand turn, the right fork, and we take the left fork. And the hope is we can share this plane of existence with them and that we don't become infertile over enough time to where we just sort of die off. That would be nice. If that didn't happen, but it may. You never know. What we do know is that this upper right quadrant is for us, and it's right receptive cognition. So if you go to the next slide, can you visualize what I'm saying, by the way? Yeah. So the variables, the cognition, that whole thing is that's how the grid is going to work out. That's how humanity will be that top grid mostly, and the rave will definitely be that bottom right quadrant, exclusively. And so these are the variables. We went over this once before, but these are the keynotes for the variables. And over time, I end up using these variables every time we're reading for someone, and I see that strategic brain, that strategic mind, the awareness, or I see that open receptive awareness, that top black arrow. If it points to the right, that receptivity is so open that it's just like, hey, dude, just tell me what you need, and suddenly it's there. The right receptive is if you have a right facing arrow in this position on your body graph, you're guaranteed to not necessarily know what the hell to do with what is it you know. So now you can know that's not a problem. You have to be around the right people over time that draw from you the right stuff. And if you have a left-facing arrow, which is strategic, you're here to know that you're not always in touch with all the things that could be. You're on your own sort of focused strategic path that's becoming identified with where you're going. Leftness is identified with its leftness. Rightness is like the rave. It's not identified with anything yet. It's waiting to be drawn from.
That makes complete sense to me.
Yes. So you can.
I'm right on top.
Me too. And a lot of people we know are, Jen. It's we seem to cling together, and we always wait people to pull stuff from us. If Nikki was able to come on, she's got a left-facing arrow, and she would draw stuff out of us that we hadn't thought to say. So that consciousness that's the passenger, this top right strategic receptive arrow configuration. It's who we think we are. It is our consciousness. It is the personality crystal's basically entrance into the form is through this arrow. It's through all the personality consciousness black set of information on your body graph. When we move down one, this is the personality's perspective. So the personality's awareness is basically what we're always doing. We're thinking things. We're I am who I am. We're self-reflecting. That's the top right box. The bottom right box is this perspective we have, how we're viewing all of that. So again, if you're left, you're focused. You got a focus view. You're zeroing in on things. You're looking at a narrow with blinders on sort of scope of things. And that's correct for you. So you're identifying with what you're strategically looking at. If you're right facing, you don't know what the hell you're looking at. Someone says focus, and it's like, I'll try to focus. So we focus in for a moment, we'll see the thing, and then we defocus again. It's not focused, it's peripheral. Imagine if you could see straight forward, all you could see was your periphery. That would be ultimately the rightness that is in this right facing view, the view in life, how we see the thing, and it's part of our nodes.
I'll say this, with being left, in my perspective, I am focused, but I know, because I train myself to also try to pick up what's happening in my peripheral. Yeah. Your peripheral is going to really tell you what is going on before the focused will.
Well, and if you're a left-facing arrow down there, Jen, on your view, it means that being focused on a thing is good for you. Don't even try to force the periphery until it's natural, obviously. If it's natural, let it happen, of course.
Well, I'm saying just with your eyes in general, how they do focus and stuff like that. I know this isn't just with the eyes, but, you know.
Senses are total.
But in the peripheral, that's a pretty cool vision to see, because in your vision, when you're looking at things, your peripheral is actually picking up a lot more than what you're focused on.
Totally. And you're not necessarily aware of it until someone strategic or something. They don't even have to be strategic until something comes along to draw it from you. Anything. It can be a sound, and suddenly your periphery pulls back from the ocean of its periphery throughout the life. Rightness retains everything it's seen, everything it's experienced. It retains it all, like a giant computer bank with unlimited gigs of storage. You don't have access to it if you're right. You don't have easy access to it. So when someone says, sit down and write this paper out, you'll be like, I know all this stuff. But if you start at a blank piece of paper, you have to wait. It just doesn't come out easily. Whereas strategic people will be like, I've been focused on this for a while. I'll get past that first sentence and I'll be writing just fine, and they will fill up that paper more easily. You and I will fill up that paper only as an inspiration that literally pulls from us, and suddenly we're filling it up with, we can't stop at one page. Strategic can. The strategic will be like, nope, one page only, 500 words. Here we go. We stopped at 500, and they managed to get that done. And the right is just keeps writing, and it's like it looks back and it says, oh, look at that. I got 3 pages. Shoot. And then it doesn't know how to condense it down because that's a strategic process. It doesn't know how to condense down what it looks like because that's a focused view that would condense it down. The periphery is like, I'd like to condense it down, but every time I condense it down, more stuff comes in. Just the act of condensing a 3-page into 1 page is the act of allowing more peripheral action to happen that adds more. So it's a quandary for right-facing arrows to condense their 3-page paper to 1. That's a gift of the strategic. We need the strategic. The strategic needs the receptive. It's a yin and yang combination. We humans, 9-centered humans, were always meant to deal with all 16 variables in a 9-centered way: communion and cooperation with the other, empowering, sharing, and supporting in ways that have the primary currency being affection, empowerment, love and direction being shared, and basically communion and things like altruism. These are supposed to be our currencies, not greenbacks. Or even gold and silver, if we could help it. If we were truly in our right minds, LOL, pardon the pun, we would do away with currency.
Mm-hmm.
We would do away with currency like they envisioned in Star Trek. I don't know,
Well, currency became a misconception because it actually is it's a form of an energy exchange, just in the form of a dollar bill that has a number on it. That's really all that money is. But people have, lost track of what it truly means.
Right.
Once you start honoring your energy, it's just like bartering. If we get out of the money system, something else is going to come in where you may be doing human design sessions where, I could be teaching somebody something else, and then we could do something, and then that's the energy exchange.
We're not looking at this world yet because we're still so trapped in the all left strategic 7-centered way. It really confounds us, and it strangles us. It murders us. It really holds us back. But if you're a 9-centered being with all left arrows, there's plenty of them. 1/16 of the population is all left in their cognition. They're still 9-centered. They're not the old 7-centered way. They're part of this variable grid motion. So they're as one with the rest of us as anybody else. There's no prejudice against one over the other or discrimination at all, period. But if you are all left, you're deeply identified with what you're doing. That's correct for you. So the right-facing arrowed beings need to support that. It's like, hey, no, dude, you're focused. If a all focused, all active individual is coming in board with a bunch of friends that are all right, those friends, just by accident, let's say that's the case. 5 people get together. Only one is totally strategic, all left-facing arrows, and everyone else is mostly or all right-facing arrows. Those all right people might put a trip on that all left person. Dude, let it go. Just let the ocean flow through. Don't focus so much. Don't be identified. That's bad advice for an all left-facing arrow. If you're all left-facing. No, dude, totally be identified. And every time you're stuck, say stuff. And from us, you'll pull whatever's needed. And we'll be in communion this way. And by the way, we'll all be helping. We'll all be tilling the field. We'll all be out doing the thing. We'll all be doing our readings and bringing in material success. And we'll all be cooperating and supporting and blah, blah, blah. It's just go ahead and stay focused. Stay identified with that, because whatever it is you're identified with, it's probably going to figure out the best way to put up that fence very often. And then you'll have drawn from us many different skills that were needed to do that. But you had the focus that kept identified with making the fence just right, making roofs not leak, making whatever, You know what I mean? Identify, making the computer panel work better, whatever it is. It doesn't mean right-facing people won't make the computer panel work better. It just means that the left-facing arrows will identify with it. And the right-facing arrows will just be excited that they made motion. It's like, look at that, look what I did. They're always excited and surprised by what they knew. Left-facing people are strategically aware of what they know, but it's limited because they're focused. Right? If you're looking at something, you're missing everything else. The right arrows aren't really looking at the thing. They're just looking at all of it. And our cognition works that way. And so if there's a bunch of left-facing arrows, this would be a danger. You take someone with a right-handed awareness, right-arrowed awareness, and they're receptive, and you put them in a group of 3 or 4 strategic facing identified cognition arrows on that awareness side. And they will condition that right-facing arrow to try and be strategic. And they might even lecture them. Let's say one of them is the elder talking to a child. No, kid, you have to focus and get this right until you got it. So repeat it and repeat it. You got to practice this until you get it. You got to be strategic about this. Wow. Well, that person will ruin that child. And that child will be all messed up. If you've got right-facing arrows in your child, that's where they are open to all of the forces and they don't know. They're waiting to be drawn from. Don't take that away from them and embrace it, encourage it. Just realize it's not strategic in a money-oriented, 7-centered strategic system where everyone's trying to get ahead. That's not what rightness is about at all. When the all-right rave is here, they won't be trading money as any form of currency. They'll be empowered to simply commune with all the other raves in whatever way that works. And that communion alone will be, ants don't trade money. A flock of birds don't trade money. You know what I mean? A pack of wolves don't trade money. A herd of elephants, on and on. I like ants because you can have 1 billion of them and they still don't trade money.
Nope.
Right. They go to war with each other, so I assume ants are 7-centered too. But regardless, it's sort of funny side note, but anyways, we're not there. I get it. That's okay. I'm just saying that's what rightness and receptiveness does. So your perspective, if you're peripheral, you're taking it all in. If you're focused, you're identified with what you're focusing on. And the brain system. So if on the top left box, so if the top right box is the mind, the personality, consciousness crystal being filtered through the strategic receptive way, the brain system is the design sun earth being coming in through this active or passive way. If you have a passive right facing arrow up there, I think you do, Jen. Your 2 top arrows are right and your 2 bottom are left.
Correct.
Yeah, mine is my 2 right hand arrows are facing right and the 2 on the left are facing left. So we're both 2 and 2. So you've got this passive brain. So you notice if someone puts too much, when we put too much work on your brain system to go ahead and know all the things, that's tiring for you. We did that during HDA. And subsequently you went through your emotional process about all of that. And we had to back off of all of that because that wasn't really correct. And who was doing that? Me with the active brain. Active brain is now identified with what it's doing. So I learned human design. My active brain is all excited. It can take it in. It can take it in. My right-facing receptive arrow is like, so what do you do with it all? What are you going to do, personality? What are you going to vocalize? What are you going to say? What are you going to be? I don't know, but my left-facing active brain is active, taking it in. It's this outer vision. It's action. It's wanting to actively focus on the thing. So it makes me incredibly focused on a thing, but my right hand receptivity says, yeah, I see you took all that in. That's great. You focused on this thing and you were very active with this subject. And look at you. You're so smart. What are you going to do with it? It happened in my music career. I was so smart in my music career. I couldn't make a career of it. That required strategery. That wasn't me. I get into the mortgage business. If my wife at the time had not been a strategic facing arrow helping to push me along, she strategically got me into the mortgage business. I didn't know. My active brain took it all in. Bam, 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 bam. I knew all the facts. I knew all the grids, all the guidelines. And then clients started coming. And what did they do? They drew from me. I didn't strategically have to figure out what the hell to do per se. I was being drawn from all the time, but I was strategically out networking, telling everyone, hey, my open ego will get that loan done. I can, I will. And I was being not me. But when clients one-on-one would draw from me, what does this mean? What should I do? Suddenly out of me came everything. And I acted like a strategic person because my open receptivity had so much stuff stored in it that whatever they asked of me, it's like, oh yeah, that's this. And we can go here to figure that out. And don't do that, do this. And I probably sounded like a strategic person, but that was all the work of my brain system, actively working with the facts. That's what the brain does. It's working with the stuff that its reality is physically dealing with, the hands-on. And the receptive rightness of my personality was like, yeah, that's great. You did all that. We're just sitting by the river waiting for something to come along. Luckily, there were clients for me. You know what I mean? What a magic thing to have happen. So active or passive. If you have a passive, then you're taking all that stuff in and really at a given moment. So there were times, Jen, when I would draw upon you and you would have all the answers because that passive brain of yours took it all in. And that focused view of yours knew what to focus on. It was like, I'm focused on this. I'm seeing it this way. And that took you in a trajectory of becoming tech smart. But every time someone asks you, do you love being the tech smart person? You have this beautiful, intelligent, emotionally aware response that says, not really. Don't stick me in a hole, please. Right? Don't put me in that hole. And so what did we do? We had to back off of putting you in that hole. It wasn't right for you. When we moved down to this environment, so the bottom two boxes, these are the nodes. The top two boxes, these are the personality, sun, earth on either side. The bottom two boxes are the design and personality nodes. So when we get down to the environment, this is just how you are in the environment. We share this variable the same. I'm a left-facing arrow. You're a left-facing arrow.
Yes.
So what happens? We're busy and active in our environment. Remember, we went to the trade show, right, to the UFO Expo. And as soon as we got there, Jen noticed we were interlocked, active. Oh, the person's coming. Oh, they said the thing. Oh, we're moving around. Oh, we're busy in our environment. Oh, we're sitting here. Oh, let's go sit there, right? That was you and I. You and I were constantly getting up. I mean, we sat at the table together, but then I got to get up and move. I'm going, my body is active in its trajectory in motion. And as soon as you came back, I was like, yeah, me too. I got to move. I'm going to go do the thing.
I'll be right back.
I'll be right back. Right. And then you would hang on to a client that was there looking into some things, not come back and do the thing, or you would be gone and I would just have the client come in and start doing something for them and you'd come back and witness that. And so this was something we shared in common. Notice we couldn't stay still very easily, plenty of times. The world sees, we're so conditioned to see leftness. So the world sees your left variables, your left-facing arrows, and the world, humanity, doesn't yet fully grasp what to do with those right-facing arrows. They just sort of pass them by. They just sort of pass them by a little bit. They see the leftness. So people see my action, my active brain. Dan, you're so smart with that active brain. They think I'm brilliant. I don't know what the hell I am. I'm busy. And they see that active body of mine that like always seems to be in some kind of motion when I'm around others. So they think that's terribly charismatic and I must be that guy. I'm not that guy. When you get over to my personality side, I'm all right. I'm like, you think I'm that guy, but I'm not focused. I can't tell. I trip over stuff all the time. It's like I bump into things. I don't know. My environment's always a bit of a mess because I don't care. It's like I see it all. It's like, and
I can testify.
Yes. And by the way, I kept my room the cleanest it's ever been, thanks to Antoinette.
It wasn't the room. It was when we stopped at Walgreens and you and I got out of the car and you went one way and I went the other way.
Right. You were focused and I was window shopping.
And I was like, where are you going?
I went to where there was no focus. I just
was focus.
Right.
The opposite direction of the entry door. You went around the building.
That's right. Oh, that's right, Jennifer. That was so you let me do that, you little brat. I
didn't know what you were doing.
Right.
So I thought you knew what you were doing, but now that I know that you don't next time, I'll be like, hey, this
Yeah.
way.
It's like, hey, dude, it's this way. Yes, exactly. And that's funny. It's funny. It's hilarious.
Well, we
The old
laughed
me,
about it when you got in the car because you
yes,
asked me if I noticed.
yeah.
And
If
I
they notice,
said,
I
well,
walk.
yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I thought you were
Well,
going somewhere.
now let's think about this for a second, Jennifer. We're not aware. Let's say this is 5-10 years ago. We don't know enough. I would be terribly embarrassed by that moment. And suddenly now I'm hanging on to a trip that's not mine for the next 30 minutes.
Right.
You know, so now the cells in my body are not working right. I'm getting sick at that moment. I'll recover just fine, most likely, but nothing's working right. My cognition isn't on track very well. I'm not thinking straight for my variable. I'm not me because I'm stuck in something called shame, blame, embarrassment, whatever it is. All the stuff that's not us. That's the old 7-centered way. Because the strategic world is like, that active boy, he must know what he's doing.
Yes. And it is such a relieving, it's freeing when you can laugh at yourself, because
Totally.
at the end of the day, we're
It was
human.
freaking hilarious. Yeah, it was truly hilarious. It was, and I felt like an idiot. I remember being embarrassed for a moment walking all the way. I'm like, there's the door. It was about 8 feet away from me. It was literally like 8 feet with big sign and everything. That was hilarious, Jennifer. Did you notice when we
say so much on it? Like,
that was great.
I literally had no clue what you were doing.
Right.
But
Well, now remember when we went to the expo thing where we went into the what was it, the museum? Did you notice I didn't know what the heck I wanted to see?
yes.
I didn't want to see anything per se. And I don't know if you noticed, but I kept a beeline. I have to strategically, which isn't really good for me per se, but I have to strategically keep an eye on the people that I'm with. I will get lost.
Yes, I noticed that. That's
Yeah.
why I always kept an eye on you, because it was like wandering off.
Quite little. And I love to wander off, but I always keep sort of like, as soon as I know I don't see you anymore, I suddenly get a little bit, I like, let me get an eye. Where were they last? What quadrant of this building were they sort of in? And I'll start to mosey on back there. And if you were to spy on me from a balcony somewhere and look at me, you would notice I'm clueless.
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
That's why I'm saying I have witnessed it firsthand, and just observing, because I know human design, I know it has a lot to do with your view and what's going on, and that's just you at the end of the day.
Right, exactly. And so if you're the observer, so we're the
I am observing. I'm observing what you're doing.
Absolutely. But this word observer, as it relates to the lower left-hand box, which is the design nodes. So the observed is the one that's in motion somehow. Everyone's seeing it as they are doing, even if they're not doing anything. They're just, that's sort of where it looks. And the observer is the one who's more passive in their environment. Per se, they're not always the most super busy, get this busy, that busy, super duper busy, blah, blah, blah. They're doing what rightness does. They're just open to the environment.
I'm the observed.
Yeah, and you are the observed and I am the observed. So people think that we are the one. And every time we've been together, Jen, we're always creating motion as a trajectory. Somewhere we're in movement to something.
Yeah, we are. We were always in movement
to something. And if we didn't have something to be in movement to, it was terribly confusing to our receptive awareness that isn't strategic. Where do you want to eat? You know, it's like, oh, we don't know. I had a taco place that looked really good, and we had to drive up and down a whole road to see if it showed up, and we still didn't see it.
Yeah.
If an all left-hand facing being would be like, yeah, I saw that spot. It was about a third of a mile back on the right, on the west-hand side, on the corner of.
Right.
If they were looking, if they weren't looking, it would escape them altogether because they're focused on one thing, or they're identified with one set of stuff. So if you go back to the other, these are 4 variables. The lower 2 are the independent variable, the life, the nodes, the trajectory, the movement we can guarantee. And if anyone wants me to read their nodes for them, it's an amazing read. It's the coolest thing ever. I can read your nodes 4 different ways. And you will resonate to all of them. This is our movement. The two top boxes, this is the dependent variables, the two deep, because the mind and the brain system, they depend on the movement of the life. You could remove our awareness and give us a frontal lobotomy, and the life will still have a trajectory. The heart will still beat, the body will still move. Obviously, they don't conceptualize anything anymore, but you see what I'm saying. So the top two depend on the lower two. So it's important we get the lower two right. If you're peripherals, don't try to be focused. Announce to your friends, I'm not focused in that way. I'm taking it all in so that they can know, and that you don't have to try and be focused, which is what you're not. Same thing with the observed or the observer. You know, don't ask me to be the observer in my environment. I'm no good at observing in my environment. I'm good at moving through my environment. It's stuck in my own little trip because I'm a second line. Now you can start to add the rest of the stuff in. So that might be no movement at all. I'm reading a book. I'm listening intently to something. I'm at my piano. You know, so my body isn't physically moving, but it's moving. It is in motion, and people see that as action. If you go back to the other slide, you can start to see how it makes more sense now that our evolutionary path, starting from 1781, moving all the way into the future till we don't know when, the voice told Ra it could be as little as 1,300 years from now that humanity would be approximately extinct or down to very little because of our slowed down incarnation process. We are slowing down how much we make babies. It's happening in the West first, and our reproductiveness is slowing down. Will we survive into the millennia, into the future, and for eons? I sure hope so. There's no rule that says we cannot, but evolution may have something to say about that. But you can, again, start to see rightness is where we are moving, and all rightness is definitely a direction that is coming. We're moving in that direction, and this is our evolutionary path. And just pick any variable. Do eeny, meeny, miny, Jen, and pick any variable, just 1 through 16.
Pick any variable?
Yeah.
This one.
Pick one. I can't see where that pointer is going. Oh, yeah, there you go. Okay. So this is in the changing zone, that middle quadrant. If you take these middle 4 boxes, this is the changing zone. This is where it can be confusing for people. So look at the two, to keynote this, the brain system is just taking in. It's just taking in, but the strategic mind wants to be focused and wants to be strategic about all that. And it becomes terribly identified with what it would like to be. And when it taxes the passive brain system to get strategic, this person starts to lose track of their nature. So it's like, dude, I see you're strategic. And then you go to the bottom variable and you see, listen, I see you're the observed. You got that left. So be active with your active brain system, be in motion, but notice your periphery for your view, that bottom right arrow, that periphery is not always focused on stuff. And so when you can't create a sharp beeline focus to what the passive brain system is simply taking in outside of your control, it's taking in. That's all it does. Every word, the meaning of every blade of grass, every Latin thing you ever heard, it's taking it all in. And you don't necessarily have access to that easily. So recognize that your activeness doesn't always have to be for a purpose like your strategic mind is telling you it has to be. Let your active strategicness surrender to the rightness, and then in the right strategic moments, according to your strategy and authority, all the passive peripheralness will just pour in on you. And suddenly you can be strategic again, and you will strategically be able to do something with all of that. This is a powerful variable. This person can strategically be active with the taking in peripheral way of their passive brain. That takes in so much. So let this person read a book and at the end quiz them and say, as long as you were present reading that book and active with your body, maybe walking around or whatever, you felt tense and active and in motion, and just let your eyes glaze over the words. And at the end of the book, I'll test you and you'll see if, as long as you're not strategically identified with getting an A, that suddenly you'll get an A. You know, that's something I could tell this person. And we would flesh that out in a reading so that they would realize my cognition works this way. So you stop trying to make the cognition work the way it isn't supposed to. This evolutionary path you're seeing here is about the evolution of our cognition, not just our form. We always think the form is evolving. It's the form and the awareness, consciousness, cognition version of everything. You were going to say?
Yeah, you know what, on okay, so what's coming to me on a higher level with this is that, we've had talks about how the whole
Let's go back full screen.
the whole solar system that we're in, everything that we're in, is an organism that's learning from each other.
Mm-hmm.
It's gathering data. It's gathering data from us, actually. We are whatever is above us that's learning in this container is learning with us, through us. That whole pattern is a way to learn multiple different perceptions of what we are as a whole.
Right.
It's a perfect combination because there's so many different points of views, ways of looking at things, feeling things, seeing things, experiencing things, all of it. And that it's like it started in one way of looking at one way and wanted to know more, so it came up with a different combination for us to get back to the other side, because we do live in a law of duality, the yin and the yang.
Well, that variable grid helps show you and what you're pointing to over and over again. And I keep saying it too. We're saying this thing, Jennifer, that we keep trying to tell everybody. The universe, our current universe, the way we see it, is not a static, dead, cold thing with hot spots. Right.
It's an organism as itself.
Life. Growing, maturing, and we're an aspect of it. And so what it really says is the universe has an intention.
Yes. Well, on a biological level, we are reading the DNA, which consists of atoms and all sorts of things, that on an atomic level, that's what we are.
Yep.
Well, if we look at us as humans, that is us being atoms to something greater than itself. And just like the atoms are doing their things and collecting data, and we're doing the same. So when you were talking about all the different variables and how they were necessary in moving from one quadrant to the next quadrant, it makes sense, because to do that, we have to gather data.
Right.
So the best way to do that is to have multiple different variables and
to gather data.
To gather the data.
Right. And 16 is some kind of a biblical number. It's a number somehow or other. It's 2 8s. It's 4 4s. There's something about 16 that matters. 16 makes a complete WA, the skeleton of the first complete WA, 15 plus 1 configuration. So 16 is something. I mean, again, we've had it in our nomenclature and in our whatever, all the mythology and stuff. 16 means something.
16 is the symbol of love and loving others.
Does it have a mystical path of some sort?
I'm looking. In the Bible, the number 16 is symbolic to love and loving.
Well, what's more love and loving than letting humanity finally get all along, fully commune with all 16 variables? I love it. Once they all wake up, what that says to me is once we all wake up, biblically speaking, here comes the new coming. As we all awake, as more of us wake up, and you can take enough of these different variables. If we took everyone who was awake and aware to their nature and awake and aware, generally speaking, we would still have a huge minority on the planet. I don't know how, maybe that minority growing? That minority may be becoming a majority soon. I don't know. I have hope.
What's the minority?
The people that are awake to their nature in design, and people who are just generally awake generally. If I combine,
it's happening more and more. I mean, I'll give you the example. When I started researching, those who are close to me or follow me know that I'm in this. I just bought my first property. I'm going to be building my first tiny home, and tiny home is a big deal. So I've been researching this 5-1, investigating all sorts of ins and outs of different alternative styles of living and everything like that. And it really helped me bring my faith back in humanity back in, because people are naturally disconnecting from the 9 to 5. They know that there's something that is not in alignment. They're hearing the inside, where most people back in the 50s, that was like unheard of, like they were so into the program that, they were doing what the program was telling them, where now people are breaking off. And not only are they breaking off, but they're breaking into communities where everybody is helping each other. The money system is going away. It's the bartering and trading. Oh, you've got, someone's growing chickens. You've got eggs. I've got, a cow. I can help provide milk. That type of thing, going back to how we should be as humans.
Yeah, I quite concur. Yeah.
So the state national thing, that gives me hope, because people are awakening. So I think it's coming in at multiple different levels. But now that you have explained really well about the variables and what we are moving, I think it is meant to come in different areas, because we're all bringing things to the table.
So if we were to gather up on the planet, let's say 50 million of us that were awake and aware enough, I'd say there's got to be at least 50 million of us that are a version of this, probably a lot more actually, but any 1,000 people, gather up 1,000 people. I know what that smile means, Jen. I still am hopeful. Gather up any 1,000 people, and all 16 variables will be present enough. And so that would be the faces of the Godhead, that are that what the Bible said would be the universality of the love of all these things. It's just another way to really look at it all. I just find it incredible that this universe does have intent. It has to have intent. And I just realized something. A dear friend of mine is taking a very long trip, and she may even be listening to this podcast. Can we go back to the slide with the grid of 16? I just wanted to pontificate keynoting her variable. So her variable would be, let's see, where is... I'll find it in 1 second. Yeah, her variable is far right, second from the top. So it's totally
far right. This one? Oh, hold on.
Far right, second.
My error. This one.
That one right there. So only active brain. So the strategic 7-centered toehold into the past is this active brain. What's that active brain doing? It's constantly taking in the data, and it's tricking the rest of its body, thinking that it needs to strategically focus, be active, and have some strategic notion of what that data is supposed to do for this person. So the problem would be when it gets away from them, it's that active brain would drive such anxiety into the heart of the person, or anyone with this variable could have this situation where the active brain is driving such anxiety, because it's the brain's working, it's active, it's running a marathon all the time. Brain says, whether you've got a defined head or not, the brain system itself is constantly jogging. I'm in motion, I'm Forrest, I'm running, and it's strategically focused on its thing. It's identifying itself with whatever it is it's being active with. It's not open and receptive, taking everything in. It's zeroed in on one thing. Yet everything else in this being is facing to the right. And so that means this person is not here to be super duper active with all the stuff that they just had their brain system is figuring out. They're here to let all that stuff just wash through. Their open receptive cognition is not here to strategically know what to do with all that. They're here to be drawn from. And if they're not around the right people won't draw that from them. And strategy and authority becomes so important for the right, more so than for the left in a way. It's terribly important all the way around. And that peripheral view, you've got to stay focused on the thing. This person, if they stay focused, I'll ask them how they are in their journey at this point, because I've pointed some of these things out. If they take that view of theirs and they're focused in on something that their brain is identified with, because it took in all the facts on that one thing, and they become identified with that, and they try and focus, it's going to give them a headache. It's going to mess up their metabolism. It's going to do all kinds of things. It's going to wreak havoc with their body as they get older and older. This is for anyone with this variable. I'm not saying this person that I'm talking about has all these things. I'm saying this is the trip, the not self trip of this variable is what I'm talking about. And the true self awesomeness of this variable is they're sitting like Buddha, just totally enjoying whatever they're doing. Their sacral will respond and put them in all the action they need to be in. And their brain is collecting and sharply focused, slicing apart the details of whatever it is that they happen to be identified with in that moment, as long as they're not overall identified with, I have to be that. Because their sacral will tell them, their strategy will tell them, their immediacy in the moment will say, I'm satisfied. And they'll recognize, oh, I've been satisfied for the past couple of weeks mostly, instead of frustrated and angry. So any being with this variable, if they're mostly satisfied, they're allowing that to happen. And if they're not, their brain is hijacking everything else because it's the one strategic thing in them. And so, by the way, everyone would come to this person as an oracle. If this never mind who I'm referring to, it's anybody with this variable, they will be seen as a form of an oracle because that active brain attracts the other. Oh my God, they know this stuff. And their open receptivity is always spitting back whatever they're being asked. So leftness attracts the other. They seem to think, oh, that's leftness. That's like me. And rightness is open to the other still. As we get to know it more, it won't be as much. And we can go back full screen. And so we can easily find ourselves, trapped by that leftness, when that leftness serves this beautiful purpose of basically getting to the bottom of certain things, that the rightness helps us flesh out the details of it all as it relates to its breadth. Strategicness is the depth in this sort of narrow band, and the rightness fills it in with all its breadth. The strategic is like the yang, it's the growing stalk of the plant, and the rightness is the flowering and all the fruit we get to pick off the plant and eat and have as sustenance, so we need them both. We need that strategic trunk that grew out of the earth that's going to be the stable backbone, and we need the rightness peripheral that is all the fruit that grows from it. So
absolutely.
Yeah, so those are our variables. They're deeply important. They're independent of your design. And if you want to know what that looks like, book your session and we can read that into your chart. So most sessions take 2 or 3 sessions in reality. It's not reading, it's more like a class. And if you want that for yourself, I'll take you through the whole thing. You book your session, and the next thing you know, we'll go through these variables. You'll see how your cognition is supposed to work. You'll see how it's supposed to work in your children and your partner. You'll see where the friction is, meaning where it really isn't. And you'll find that out yourself. So it's a magical journey. It's amazing. It's concretized in our genome. So it's no longer esoteric. If this is the genome at work. Come find out.
With that, I think that was a well ending. Thank you, everybody who tuned in. As always, please make sure you share this out, like, subscribe, and follow the show. And we will see you on Wednesday.
Yep. See you on Wednesday.
Y'all have a wonderful day.
Yep.
Bye now.